It's week 9 of Sarah Hatton's A Day Out blanket, and this last week is called Glaziers Lane, which is really nice because it's the home of Black Sheep Wools. And the square this week is a combination of lots of different stitches. We've got knit and purl stitches, we've got knit through the back loops, which creates this lovely line of stitches here that are quite textured, and they stand out really nicely. We've got this little band of mock cables, so you don't use a cable needle for those. But then we've also got these travelling cables which create this lovely V shape, and you're going to need your cable needle for those. And then we've got the bobbles that we did in a previous week, the no-turn bobbles. But I'm just going to show you all of those stitches because most of them are used along one row. So apart from the bobbles, I'll show you a row that incorporates all those lovely stitches. And so I'm on row 10, which is the right side of knitting, and I'm going to read out the stitches as I make them. I'm just going to move this piece of paper out of the way, put my cable needle there, so that's ready. And first of all, we are going to purl one, and all of these stitches are used on the right side row, so it doesn't matter that I'm doing row 10 because you'll be using these stitches on row 2 as well, right from the beginning. So purl the first stitch, and then we go to knit the next stitch, but this stitch is knit 1 through the back loop, and that means that instead of going into the front of your stitch like you would for a regular knit stitch, you take your needle just behind and you go into the back loop of the stitch. So there's like the front leg and the back leg of the stitch, and you go in the back, and then you just knit the stitch as normal, and it just twists it round and creates a nice effect. Next is we're going to purl 2. The beginning of these right side rows is the same actually for every row, and then we're going to do that twice because it's in brackets. So we're going to again go through that back loop, knit 1 and then purl 2. Okay, so that's the first little bit done. So now we're going to MC, which means mock cable. So we're going to slip 1. I've been slipping mine purlwise, and then we're going to knit 1. Then we're going to do a yarn over, so you bring the yarn in between the needles and then over the needle again to the back, ready to then knit the next stitch. Then we're going to pick the slip stitch up, so just insert your needle into the front of the slip stitch, which is the 4th stitch down, because we did a knit 1, a yarn over and a knit 1, so they're there at the top, those top 3. We're going to lift the 4th stitch up and over those 3 stitches. So even though you've dropped a stitch there by lifting it over and off, you made a stitch with the yarn over, so you've still got the same number of stitches. And then that yarn over creates this little line underneath, and that then looks like a cable stitch. So that's our mock cable done. So now the next instruction is to purl 2. 1, 2. Okay, and then we're going to knit 1 through the back loops. There we go, couldn't get it then for a minute. And then we're going to purl 2 again. Now the next instruction is BC, which is the back cable, and this is where you're going to need your cable needle. So I just swapped my cable needle actually because the other one was a little bit thin and it just fell out of the stitch. So I've got a slightly thicker needle which matches my 5mm needle a little bit better. I don't know why I didn't do that in the first place, but the BC is to slip the next stitch onto the cable needle and then hold it at the back of your work. And then what happened before is I let go and the needle just fell out because it was actually too thin. So just be careful that you use the kind of a cable needle that's at least the thickness of your knitting needles. It can be a little bit thinner but not too much thinner, but try not to make it too thick either because then it'll stretch the stitch. So if you can get one the same size, that's the best thing. And then we're going to knit 1 through the back loop, we're going to purl one, and then we're going to knit one through the back loop again. So again, going into the back loops of those stitches. So that's the next 3 stitches knitted, and then we knit the cable needle, get that stitch up to the top, and then we can knit it off. There we go. That's our back cable complete. And then we're going to knit one. Then we're going to knit one through the back loop, and we're going to knit 2, and we're going to do that twice. So through the back loop, not through the front loop, through the back loop, and then knit 2, not purl 2, knit 2. You have to keep an eye on the stitches because there's quite a lot of different stitches here, so I try to read just a few at a time. And what I've been doing is I've been getting like you know, a pencil or something and just popping it under the row that I'm on like that, so I know where to look when I look up again. We're going to knit through the back loop, we're going to knit one, and now we're going to do the front cable. So now you get your cable needle. Front cable is to slip 3 stitches onto the cable needle. 1, 2, 3. Hold it at the front of your work. So if you pop the stitches to the centre, if you've got a dipped needle like I have, a little shaped needle, it is a little bit better because the stitches hang nice there, they don't fall off. So we slip those and leave them at the front of the work. We knit one, and then we're going to knit the stitches from the cable needle. Just push them up to the top, and we knit one through the back loop. We knit one, oh no, we purl one, sorry, purl one, and then we knit one through the back loop. So just make sure you read the right instructions for the cable because they are both slightly different for the front cable and the back cable. So that's our front cable complete, and then we're going to purl 2, 1, 2, knit one through the back loop, purl 2, and then we're going to make another mock cable. So if you remember, we slip a stitch, and I slip that stitch purlwise. You can slip it knitwise, it'll just might change slightly the orientation of the stitch. So I slip it purlwise, and then I knit one, bring the yarn forward and over the needle, and then knit another one. So you've created a little stitch in between those 2 knitted stitches, and then we lift that 4th stitch down the slipped stitch, lift it up and over the top, so you get that lovely strand of yarn sitting underneath. Okay, and then we're going to purl 2, knit one through the back loop, purl 2, and knit one through the back loop, and then purl 1. And that takes you to the end of row 10. And you can see, if we just look at this knitting, we can see these travelling cables now, they're moving by 1 stitch, and we've got a lovely spine going down the middle, and we've got all these lovely lines where those knit one through the back loops are, and then we've got your mock cables at each end there. So these bits stay the same. It's really this central part that changes on every right side row. It's just slightly different. So just make sure that you either use maybe like a ruler, piece of washi tape, or a stick-it note, and just pop it onto your pattern, and then you move it down. So I'm on row 11 now. I could move mine down to there, so you know your eyes are drawn to that particular part of the pattern, and it's just a little bit easier then to see where you're up to. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I will knit another couple of rows, and then I'll be able to show you the bobbles. So now I'm at the point in the pattern where I want to make a bobble. So we are going to knit, and then it says knit through the back loop, and then knit again into the front, and then go and knit into the back of the same stitch. So from one stitch we now have these 4 stitches. Then we're going to pass them back one at a time to the left hand needle, and then we're going to knit them again. To pull the yarn and knit 1, 2, 3, 4, and then slide them back one at a time to the left needle, and then knit them again. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to pass the stitches one at a time over the top stitch. So 1, 2 and 3. Okay, and then the next stitch is to purl. So if you pull that quite tight, and that purl stitch will make sure your bobble sits nicely on the front then. Look how nice that one is. There we go. And so you've got this lovely little bobble, and the bobbles are sitting on these spines that we've created by the knit 1 through back loops. And so that's it, that's all the stitches covered for that one, and I hope you enjoy it, and I can't wait to see all your squares.